Ever heard of a rock star so wild he once spent $2,000 a day on drugs but still came back to top the charts sober? That's Steven Tyler, and this is The Versed, Masters of Music. I'm Dick Carlson. Welcome. Before we begin, try this. Which long-running reality talent show did Steven Tyler join as a judge? And here's one more. What's the name of the custom motorcycle company Steven Tyler co-founded to bring his wild designs to life? Drop your guesses in the comments below and keep watching. I'll reveal the answers as we go. Let's explore how a street kid from Yonkers became one of rock's most outrageous frontmen and built a $150 million legacy of motorcycles, mansions, and mayhem. But to truly understand the man behind the scarves and screams, we need to rewind because Steven's early life holds the kind of chaos that changed everything. Steven Tyler was born Stephen Victor Tallarico on March 26, 1948, right in the heart of Manhattan. But his story really took shape just outside the city in Yonkers, New York, where life felt far from glamorous. His father, Victor Tallarico, was a classical pianist and music teacher. Their home was filled with Mozart, Chopin, and the steady rhythm of discipline. Steven grew up watching his dad work the keys, quietly absorbing melodies before he even knew what to do with them. His parents expected him to follow tradition, maybe become a music teacher like his father. But Steven had other ideas. He'd lie on the floor for hours listening to soul records, blues, and the raw punch of early rock. Somewhere deep inside, he decided that music wouldn't just be part of his life. It would be his life. Steven was a restless kid with a wild streak. School never really fit him. By his teens, he was already skipping classes, getting in trouble, and eventually got expelled. But that same unruly energy found a different outlet, and it was rock and roll. By the late 60s, he was fronting small-time New York bands like Chain Reaction. His voice was sharp, strange, and electric, and people started noticing him. He wasn't polished yet, but he was magnetic. And more than anything, he dreamed of leading a band like the Rolling Stones or the Beatles. Those early years were messy and raw for Steven, but they laid the foundation for everything to come. Steven Tyler's turning point came in 1970 when he met a sharp-faced guitarist named Joe Perry in Sunapee, New Hampshire. The chemistry was instant. Along with Tom Hamilton, Joey Kramer, and later Brad Whitford, they formed their band Aerosmith in Boston that same year. From the start, they wanted to be huge. The band's early sound was gritty and blues-driven, but Steven's voice pushed it somewhere new. He made it part snarl and part scream, with an unmistakable swagger as cherry on top. Their self-titled debut came out in 1973, but it was their third and fourth albums, named Toys in the Attic in 1975 and Rocks in 1976, that exploded. Later, Dream On, Sweet Emotion, and Walk This Way turned them into American rock royalty. Along with the fame came the lifestyle, and Steven embraced it fully. Drugs were everywhere, and for him, it quickly escalated. Heroin, cocaine, pills, it all blurred into the endless cycle of touring and partying. He was rarely sober and rarely home. On stage, he became a spectacle. Sarves tied to the mic stand, painted nails, silk pants, and enough eyeliner to start a cosmetics line. His look was as loud as his voice, and fans couldn't get enough of it. But behind the scenes, the chaos was building. By the late 70s, Steven was deep in addiction, and it was starting to crack the foundation of everything he'd built. His material lifestyle had kicked in with fancy clothes, expensive hotels, and private jets. But it came with a cost. The money and fame were flowing, but so was the damage that was piling. This was the era that made Steven Tyler a star and nearly destroyed him in the process. By the early 1980s, the magic was fading. Aerosmith's albums stopped landing, ticket sales dipped, and the wild lifestyle started catching up with everyone, especially Steven Tyler. His drug use had spiraled out of control. At one show, he collapsed on stage mid-performance. It was a warning sign. His body was giving out, and so was the band. Infighting, overdoses, and exhaustion nearly broke them apart. But in 1986, something shifted. Tyler checked himself into rehab for the first time. It was a move that shocked fans and saved his life. The drugs left his system and took a piece of the chaos with them. But sobriety didn't come easy. Stephen relapsed more than once and fought tooth and nail to stay clean. He often said the hardest part wasn't quitting drugs, it was figuring out who he was without them. For decades, his identity had been tied to chaos. Now, he had to rebuild everything: his health, his voice, his relationships, and most of all, his sense of self. And he did. Once clean, Stephen came back with new fire. Aerosmith returned with Permanent Vacation in 1987, and suddenly, they were on fire again. Pump followed in 1989, then Get a Grip in 1993, each album bigger than the last. Songs like Love in an Elevator, Janie's Got a Gun, and Cryin' were everywhere, on radios, in music videos, and across stadiums packed with fans. But the moment that really flipped the switch was a genre-bending collaboration with hip-hop group Run DMC for a gritty remix of Walk This Way. It didn't just put Aerosmith back on the map. In fact, it blew the map up. Rock and rap collided in a way no one had seen before, and a whole new generation found Steven Tyler. With fame came money, this time in truckloads. The band signed new contracts, the tours sold out, and royalties from decades of music started stacking up. Steven's finances were suddenly looking sharp, because he wasn't just sober. Now he was focused. He started treating his voice like an instrument, fiercely disciplined about vocal warm-ups, rest, and diet. Offstage, he designed his own stage wardrobe, creating a glam rock image that became as iconic as his voice. As his life steadied, his luxuries expanded. He began building a quiet collection of high-end cars, and whispers of big property purchases started circulating. The chaos was finally being replaced by control. By the early 2000s, Steven Tyler had nothing left to prove, but he wasn't slowing down. Aerosmith kept touring, playing to sold-out crowds across the world. Over the decades, their live shows would generate more than $600 million in gross revenue, making them one of the most successful touring acts in rock history. Then, in 2011, Steven did something unexpected. He joined American Idol as a judge. It was a sharp left turn, but it worked. Viewers loved his eccentric charm, unpredictable one-liners, and undeniable star power. He reportedly earned between $8 to $10 million per season, and the show introduced him to a whole new generation. For many younger viewers, it was their first time seeing Steven outside the chaos of rock stardom. A few years later, in 2015, he launched Janie's Fund, a charity inspired by the Aerosmith hit Janie's Got a Gun. Their mission was to help abused and neglected girls find safety and healing. It wasn't just a symbolic gesture. Steven himself got involved into the project, helping raise over $2.4 million in its first few years. A year later, in 2016, he stepped out solo for the first time. His country rock album, We're All Somebody from Somewhere, showed a softer side of Steven and debuted at #1 on the Billboard Top Country Albums chart. Fans weren't expecting it, but that gamble worked. The album was more than just a career move, it was personal. Steven had always loved country music's storytelling roots, and this was his way of reconnecting with his voice as a songwriter, not just a frontman. It marked a turning point where fame took a backseat to creative freedom, and it proved he still had something to say, even if he wasn't screaming it. But music wasn't his only business. Around that same time, he co-founded Dirico Motorcycles, a high-end custom bike company. Steven was involved in the designs himself. For a man who lived fast, building motorcycles was personal. His wealth was now showing up in his real estate, too. He purchased a stunning oceanfront home on Maui for $4.8 million, a tropical hideaway that offered peace and privacy. In Los Angeles, he owned a Hollywood Hills mansion, which he later sold for $3.5 million. He also had a sleek Las Vegas residence and a large wooded estate in Marshfield, Massachusetts. His car and bike collection reflects his wild taste and deep pockets. Among the standouts are a 1961 Lotus Super 7, a vintage 1941 Ford pickup, a blistering Hennessy Venom GT Spider, multiple Harley-Davidsons, and custom-built Dirico motorcycles he helped design himself. Through it all, his net worth climbed steadily, reaching an estimated $150 million. That's despite spending nearly $20 million over the years on addiction treatment and recovery. It was the money he later described as an investment in staying alive, and by this point, Steven Tyler had it all. Rock legend status, financial power, and a lifestyle filled with custom rides, ocean views, and peace earned the hard way. His fashion remained loud and lavish throughout his career, but behind the feathers and scarves was a man who had reinvented himself completely and lived to enjoy it. For a man who once lived out of suitcases and recording studios, Steven Tyler's later years have taken a softer turn, but he is still as impactful. In 2019, he opened Janie's House in Atlanta as well. It became a real brick-and-mortar safe haven where young women can rebuild their lives. For Steven, it was about using his voice for something bigger than fame. While the world still sees the scarves and swagger, his day-to-day life has become much more grounded. He spends a lot of time between two places he calls home. One is Maui, with its waves and tropical quiet, and the other is Massachusetts, where he can lose himself in woods, gardens, and old memories. His bond with his children is deep and present. You probably know Liv Tyler, his actress daughter, but Steven also shares close ties with Mia, Chelsea, and his son, Taj. These days, he's not just a rock legend, he's a dad and a grandfather. His mornings are often spent tending to roses, sipping tea, or sharing stories with his grandkids. He still loves riding motorcycles, especially the custom ones he helped design. And in his downtime, he's known to reflect, journal, and turn inward. Spirituality and peace have replaced the chaos that once chased him. Though Aerosmith doesn't tour like they used to, Steven occasionally returns to the stage, and hints of a farewell tour began surfacing around in recent years. Even now, fans pack venues to hear his voice. Publicly, he's still dashing, still funny, still full of fire. But privately, he's a man who's finally made peace with the whirlwind he survived. It's a full-circle moment where chaos turned into calm without ever losing the spark. So, Steven Tyler isn't just a rock god. He's a man who stared down addiction, rebuilt a shattered career, and turned raw talent into a $150 million empire of homes, motorcycles, and music history. Through every high and low, he's never stopped being Steven, who is unpredictable, electrifying, and unforgettable. So, which part of his journey surprised you most? Or is there a chapter that felt deeply personal? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. And if you're into stories like this, stick around because another legend's tale is just one click away.